Trilogy do count since they get added to your campaign total, but all of the new tracks in Nitro Fueled don't count because getting the relics there doesn't count towards anything, doesn't get displayed anywhere, and I have no clue when they'll stop adding DLC levels, so it's probably best that I stick with the story mode ones that never changed from PS1 to PS4. Also, there's no point doing the Nitro Kart remade tracks in Nitro Fueled because I did them on the original game already. And with that, in no particular order, let's start off with the hardest platinum relics I had to get from Crash 1. This game was pretty damn hard to platinum all the way through. When it comes to Crash 1, whether it's the original or the remake on the Insane Trilogy, there's one thing that rings true about the entire game. It isn't supposed to be rushed. It's 4-play Bandicoot. Because of that, when Vicarious Visions added relics to the original Crash for the remake, just because they could, they didn't even bother to add the Crash Dash as a power-up, because, the game is simply not built for it. However, this doesn't mean that the Platinum relics still aren't an utter prick to grab, because with the game's platforming itself being built around patience, that doesn't translate to running through the stages as fast as humanly possible. As such, one of the hardest platinums I tried to get in this game was with Sunset Vista. From the very second you start, you need to get the first jump correct or else... and it only gets worse from there. In terms of raw platforming and nothing else, this stage in a normal setting isn't too taxing, but where the challenge comes from is by rushing through it. You'll find yourself needing to defy common sense and physics by jumping after being pushed away by protruding walls. You need to make sure that you time the start of your run perfectly so that you aren't stuck behind timed flaming torches. You need to make sure that you don't get hit at all so that you can invincible Aku Aku your way across the middle part of the level. Really important because it makes you run way faster and be invulnerable to anything. You can't even afford to wait on these spinning platforms because that wastes too much time. So you'd better make sure the position they're in on your current run will be just right for you to hop, skip, and jump across them. Otherwise, you'll hop, skip, and suffocate! And these bats, sweet mother crackhead, these bats. Sometimes you can spin them all away, no issue, and sometimes you can't. No idea why, but it's enough to make a hernia pop out. And all of this wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't one of the longest damn levels of the game. It's not only a flawless run you need to commit to, but it has to be a marathon too. Luckily though, I've got so good at this stage by this point, I'm able to smash these completely useless boxes right here before the exit and still end up with the platinum. I'm being way too cocky to talk about the first hardest level in this video. Generator Room begins with Cortex laughing so heavily at you that he's practically choking, and if you're going for the platinum here, he has every right to giggle at you. The first two time crates are positioned underneath TNT crates that you have to avoid spinning, and if you can get your head around that for the first goddamn boxes that need breaking, you'll then find yourself in a level with picky pixel-perfect jumps galore, multiple moving platforms over bottomless pits, and in possibly the hardest aspect of the stage, the requirement to skip as much of these moving platform sequences as possible by jumping as early as possible on and off of them as early as possible in order to shave off the milliseconds you need in order to win, while fighting with depth perception away from the screen. Why do I feel the need to do this? Because the end of the stage sees you moving on floating platforms that are so slow, I'm convinced they're clinically depressed, and because of how much time this segment of the run wastes, you need to optimize the entire level beforehand so that you're safe enough to then skip the final jump and make it safely to the end. And that isn't what I like to do in my generator rooms. Fumbling in the Dumbling is a pretty hard stage just to get through normally, the gimmick being that you are in the dark and need to smash Aku Aku crates in order to keep the path lit. But if you get hit just one single time, you don't just lose the hit point, you lose all the light as well. It doesn't matter how many Aku Aku crates you break, you are stuck in the dark. Combine that with the need to rush through this level, often making leaps of faith onto platforms that haven't come out of the dark yet, jumping onto spiders to make extremely tricky jumps, and trying to speed past swinging axes that sometimes come out of nowhere, and you end up with a platinum relic that I'm convinced has a sad face. The lab. Oh Lord Jesus, strangle a cat, the lab. One of the hardest levels in the base game as it stands, trying to rush through this one is like trying to square dance on top of a kettle. It's horrible, and the main issue here is the fact that you are pretty much required to run by everything in one go without stopping, but only when being able to start the level off at such a perfect time where you won't need to wait for these electric gates that if they touch you will zap your fat. And even if you time that start off so well that all the gates turn off by the time you reach them, meaning that you can get past them without stopping, that doesn't negate the trapdoors that open and close very quickly, the switches that you must hit in order to open doors, otherwise the fact that you can't see behind the doors in order to plan your next move until it's too late, and the awkward jumps that you need to do around all the enemies, which if you time wrong can also lead to you getting electrocuted. Although, if you end up being in the stage so long that you could have kids with it, you could teach yourself to jump over the lower zaps of the electric gates at the right time. Stormy Ascent. Come on, you all knew this was going to be here. The level that was supposed to be in the original PS1 game that was taken out because it was too hard. Yeah, pretty obvious choice now that I've said that, eh? I'm sure many of you would argue that Road to Nowhere or the High Road should have been one of the harder levels, but to be honest, I found them not that bad at all, because all you need to do is move forward and time your own jumps, and that is it, really. Not move along, time jumps, land on platforms that move faster than a bullet train, optimize your path so you can get to vanishing platforms at the right time to keep running, avoid enemies everywhere, get over spikes protected by stairs that turn into slides, jump off of spinning platforms to bounce on top of time crates and then land back on the spinning platforms, land on other platforms moving around in weird wavy patterns over spikes and bottomless pits, and while trying to keep yourself alive for nearly 3 minutes in one of the longest stages in the entire game. Yeah, and you guys think a bridge is difficult? Oh look! What's that hiding under the stairs? Why, it's Cash Banuka 2 Gringotts Steakhouse. This game was just as hard to grab the platinums on as Crash 1, but for different reasons. As we all know by now, the original Crash 2 changed and refined basically everything from Crash 1, from the save system to gem collecting and especially the controls, including introducing the use of a slide, crawl, and slide jump for extra height and distance to your jumps. However, there was still no relics or power-ups in the PS1 game, so the Insane Trilogy remake got the same treatment as Crash 1, but with one key difference. You could now use the Crash Dash from Crash 3, and if you think that being able to run faster makes getting the platinum relics any easier, oh, I laughed like a dad. The thing is, just like with Crash 1, because Crash 2 was never designed from the ground up to give players the ability to dash through them, the levels themselves are also not quite built to be rushed either. It's not as bad as the original by a long way, but it's still very noticeable that you're dashing through the snow in a one-horse open coffin. So in many ways, despite the new moves you can play with that allow you to take ridiculous shortcuts, some of the platinum relics here can actually be harder to get than any of the other games because of the Crash Dash power-up added in that the original design of the levels never accounted for. But I still persisted, and here's what I thought were the hardest ones to get. Let's start things off tame with a little trip to a simple stage known as Crash Crush. Well, it's simple enough on the base game at least. You run away from a boulder, but you can't run away from yourself. When going for a platinum relic though, Jesus H. Crisps. Where in the standard game you get just enough room to see what's coming ahead with the screen placement, with the Crash Dash, that fairness is thrown out of the window. You cannot see what's coming or react to it quick enough because of how fast you move. And if it isn't a bottomless pit or electric gate you need to get around, it's the one thing that will absolutely kill your platinum run time. The mines. You hit these mines and don't die.
Ok. Vamos ver se tá muito travado. E aí, muito travado, não tá?
Let's go with this one.
What'd I miss? That'll do it. All right, back to work.
Tá lagado mesmo?